I do think, though, sorry, that as women, we get away with a lot. We do. We get away with a lot of bad behavior. But I also think that we take on a lot.
Would you approach things differently now in terms of the pettiness and
Yeah.
the hurt?
I think there's an emotional regulation piece that I'm better at now. It's an ongoing process. But I've talked about this, I think, in previous episodes. There was a pattern that Genevieve and I were in where I would express something generally calmly at first, and then Genevieve would not be outwardly responding to what I was saying necessarily. Maybe she'd be listening or processing, but I would feel like I was being ignored, and even though that wasn't necessarily what was actually happening. And then I would express it again at a slightly more intense level. Frequently, the way that Genevieve either wouldn't respond at all or would be her not petty but blunt self, and I felt uncared for. Often some of the biggest blow-ups or temper tantrums that I had or petty instances were in response to that pattern, because generally speaking, I communicated how I was feeling calmly the first time. Not always, but as a norm, from my perspective. I think neither of us realized that pattern was really happening at the time. But now, with the benefit of time and retrospect and more healing, now I can interrupt that pattern sooner. So now if I don't get the response that I'm looking for in some form, what I would do now is just pause and step away and rethink it. If thinking, and usually that helps. Usually, like putting myself in her shoes and thinking, Genevieve is probably processing in her own way. She's probably not actually ignoring me the way that it feels like she's ignoring me. So that would be one option. Or if I'm still having some internal, bitterness or resentment or anger or anxiety about it, I can journal or I can talk to somebody else about it. I have more tools, and I would understand now that if I don't interrupt that pattern, then these bigger blow-ups or petty instances are going to happen, and those are harder to come back from. I couldn't go back and fix that plant that her aunt got her. So if I can take a left sooner before I hit the end of that road, that's better for everybody, because ultimately my reaction exceeded what was needed for me to communicate how I was feeling, right? So
yeah, such a good point. You can't undo stuff as easily as you think sometimes. And some things you just can't undo. Right. Not that you can't recover, but you can't undo it or unsay it, right? Like it's out there already. Yeah. And so sometimes that damage, like it's so hard in terms of the impact. The healing. Like taking all of that time to recover from the damage that has been done, from the words that have been said or the actions that have been executed. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's hard. So just taking time to like really curb the self, because the gains are far smaller, far smaller than we think. It's like you feel like a pang of satisfaction in that moment, but then the pieces are laid out.
It's not worth it.
It's really not.
It is not.
You know what I mean? It's like, how do you really want your relationships to be? It's tough.
What would you have done differently in order to validate Sam's like emotions in that scenario?
Yeah, I mean, now, like today, I mean, this is what I do for a living, right? I listen and validate and empower people and have transformational conversations and enable people to have revolutionary relationships. Catch me on Relationship Series. But good plug. Good plug. I think what I know how to do now, I didn't have that. I didn't have that then.
Accountability.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of accountability now. I don't think there's any one thing in my life that is a secret. Like somebody knows everything. Like maybe one person doesn't know everything, but I don't have any secrets. I don't like.
Do you feel like you had secrets back then?
No, not really. Not really. No. But I wasn't as open. I didn't have secrets, but I wasn't as open. Okay. Now I'm intentional. So like I make sure people know what's going on with me in my life. And then when it comes to my speech, and then my responses.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So sometimes I am quite flatline, like, okay, this is what it is. But today I'm actually a lot better at recognizing how I can come across. And so working on my voice and my tone, and okay, fine, those are just regular skills and growth things. But it's the words, like tailoring words that are clear and true, but also that can be well received by the individual.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only in the context of like close relationship, because it's like you don't really know how to do that with randoms. But with people that I've been in relationship with, I can kind of tell, how they might respond or react, when I say certain things or what have you. So yeah, I think learning how to validate, learning how to listen, learning how to respond and speak more compassionately, or more empathically. Yeah, I think that those are all areas that I've grown a lot in, and I recognize the gap between how I show up now and the kinds of responses I get and the kinds of relationships I'm able to build versus then. Now versus then.
Yeah, and I can co-sign that. I'll give you a practical example. We're going to share, if it's okay with you, we'll share the real, right? Yeah, okay. If it's not okay with you, then we can cut this part out. But so recently, very recently, we were in the process of planning a particular set of episode recordings. Similarly, I wasn't feeling like the communication was what I wanted it to be. It wasn't meeting my desires or expectations. And I communicated that to Genevieve, and I still didn't get the response initially necessarily that would have made me feel validated or listened to or heard. And there was things happening externally, like Genevieve was traveling, there was things happening family-wise, professionally, holidays, everything was coming together at once. And Genevieve had shared some of that with me, and we've got our wires crossed as far as what her availability would be like to communicate. But still, how I felt didn't change. All that didn't change how I felt. I felt dismissed, not validated, not seen. So instead of wilding out and like giving her a hard time about it or trying to be petty, I went and journaled about it, right? I wrote through like, this is how I'm feeling, and this is exactly how I'm feeling, I didn't hold back. Then I also journaled the other side, like, what might Genevieve be experiencing right now? What am I not seeing? If I remove myself from my own feelings, what else is happening that I am not being aware of? And I also journaled, what could I do better here? How could I improve the situation? What's my side of the fence? And all that process, how I felt and how I looked at the situation was completely different. I also talked my journaling through with somebody else. So I communicated to Genevieve, hey, just so you know, I'm feeling some resentment, but I've worked through it, but I still want us to at least touch base so you know where I'm coming from. And Genevieve acknowledged, which was good. She's like, okay, that's good. I'm busy right now, but I'll get back to it. And she wasn't able to get back to it in a time that made me feel validated or seen. So I had to come back and like, it's like, man, I didn't enjoy that feeling. I didn't enjoy that experience, but I also wasn't simmering in the same way that I would have been 10 years ago. I now had more perception around what she could have been experiencing that would hinder her from responding in a way that maybe I would want. So time passes, again, responses still aren't what I would like. And it's getting to the point where some of it is actually mission critical. I need a response to certain things in order for us to put this together and put things together the way that we had planned. So I sent her like a more direct message, not angry, not losing my temper, but just like, this is really what's happening logistically, and this is also how I feel. I need something better than what you're giving me. And I kind of laid it out. And her response was exceptional then. She apologized. She acknowledged where she had could have done better. She explained her side of the fence, right? Like any miscommunications on her side or misunderstandings and what she was experiencing. And then she also made a commitment. This is what I can do differently and when. And she was very clear. After that text, I felt great. So that example, I think, is a good example of both of our growth in that sense. Again, Genevieve was communicative several times throughout and did so in a way that, she knows me to a degree. She knows some of the things that might have triggered me or got me upset or that I might be looking for, right? And she was intentional about doing that. Again, we just didn't have those tools in our toolbox to the same degree when we were living together and married, right?
Yeah, I would definitely say that was teamwork. And yeah, like as a man, I think that it's really, really important for you to be able to be aware of your emotions and the fact that you have grown in that area and are able to embrace that, right? because as men, it's harder to be able to express yourself and say, hey, I'm hurt, or, you know, I feel this way. And as well as a woman, it's like when we tend to dismiss things, it's because we just have different perspectives, right? And it's that part of like not being resentful towards each other. How far do you get before you start feeling that way and you start building it up and it builds up into frustration, right? But that goes hand in hand with communication. Would you say that that's something that has affected you in the past? The lack of being able to express your emotions with each other?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I think there's always expression happening. There's always communication happening. That's what we do best. Whether or not we always get the message or the message is always clear, that's left to be debated. I do think, though, sorry, that as women, we get away with a lot. We do. We get away with a lot of bad behavior. But I also think that we take on a lot. I think men are a lot better at expressing their needs and what they want. They're like, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. Like, I want to have 6 wives. I want to have a wife and a girlfriend. I want to do this. I want to have a casual sex relationship. I want to blah, blah, blah. Men will say stuff like that. Men will be like, this is what I need and what I want. And then, do you want to fall in line? Do you want to do the things or not? Do you want to be my vacation wife? Like, I don't know. Like, what do you want to do? And then, you know, women can choose. I think men are good at that, and women have been less minimized. I just think they've been less encouraged. They've been encouraged less to do that, right? Women are kind of like, oh, you know, be open and accepting, and
where can I fit in rather than how can I take up space?
Where can I fit in? I like that. Where can I fit in versus where can I take up space? And that idea of like taking on and learning and like, you know, what do you do? Oh, let me learn. I'm going to learn how to play golf because you play golf, and let me, you know, never swim again. And like, just, we do stuff like that. And that's the sacrificial, nurturing nature, of course. But I think we get lost in that. And then I think we lose in that, right? So we get lost in that. We get caught up in something. And then when it's gone, or when he's gone, or when he leaves or whatever, then we're like left reeling, right? We get lost. And then we also lose out on building up ourselves and getting to that place where we can ask for what we want and need and have our needs met. Because I really do think that if we express ourselves, then there's the likelihood of the chances of us getting our needs met exponentially increase. But I think that as women, we're not encouraged to do that. And I think men are much more encouraged to do that. And then I think that because we aren't encouraged to do that, we end up most of the time acting out in very petty, harmful ways when relationships break down. And we're also given a lot more room. Like, oh, she's a woman scorned. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Oh, she's just crazy because, you know, he left or whatever. Or he had a baby outside of marriage or whatever. And, you know, she's reeling, right? Because she didn't get her needs met. She wasn't fulfilled in that space. And now it's gone. And now she's hurt. And it's like, she's taking the kids. Oh, you know, she's just crazy. And she's not letting him see the kids. And like, but then it's like, oh, she's just hurt. She's just, you know, and not that I'm saying any of those behaviors are acceptable. I actually don't think so at all. But I think women are given a lot more room to behave in those crazy ways.
Yeah, I've never thought about that. But now that you say it, I agree. Like, whether it be something on the macro level, like, you know, file for sole custody and not let him see his kids, right? There's a stereotype there. Or or even like in dating, like things like blocking or ghosting somebody when they do something small, right? Like, there's a lot more leeway. Like, girl, you know, do what you got to do, right? See what you put up with, but
yeah.
So another thing that I want to ask is, how can individuals better understand their insecurities to prevent them from causing harm in a relationship?
Well, we know my answer. Go to therapy.
Yeah, I've said this before. I am pro therapy, but I also don't think therapy is the only way to do things. Therapy has pros and cons, and we can get more into that. But
so when we talk about surgery, we talk about invasive surgery and we talk about non-invasive surgery. Therapy is non-invasive surgery that has great impact and effect for years and years and years and years to come. Just saying.
Have either of you gone to therapy?
Yes.
Therapy?
Absolutely. 100%.
I have, but that hasn't given me, like, I've had mixed experiences. Some positive, but all my therapy has been underwhelming. I went because I wanted a certain result, and I never got that result from that therapist, even though I spent X amount of dollars and time trying to do whatever they said.
Was it in regards to a relationship, or for your personal?
Like we did, like, therapy would be a stretch. We did some couples counseling when we were trying to. Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't say.
So there's a difference between counseling and therapy and clinical therapy and occupational therapy and all the other therapies, but like clinical psychotherapy, that's what I'm talking about. Go ahead and find you a therapist, a good one. Okay. BetterHelp.com. I don't know. Calm app. Call LeBron James. Do something. Okay. Find yourself a good therapist. Wow. Doesn't he do the Calm app? Anyway, the point is,
I think so.
He does.
I've
he's
before,
all about mental health. He's strong up here before he's ever strong on the court. Okay. If you want your performance to increase, you will get your mind right. To get your mind right, go and get some therapy. Okay.
And if again, I'm not anti-therapy, but another solution, another option would be do some research about what you need. So Google, YouTube, ChatGPT. These are the issues that I'm experiencing, and then come up with a plan of action and get some strong accountability. That is probably the method that has been more effective for me personally. Getting some knowledge from people who know what they're talking about, and then getting some accountability to help implement whatever it is that I'm learning is beneficial.
Where would you find those kind of people for you?
It depends on what's happening. So for some communities that I've been involved with church and church communities are good. Like, church is a really valuable source of good, healthy community. Recovery groups, like when I've been in addiction recovery groups, those have been a great source of help. And even just close friendships, friends who love me, who I can be like, yo, this is what I want to do. This is the goal that I want to hit. It doesn't even have to be something negative. It can be something positive. And I can be like, these are the steps I feel like I have to take. Can we talk about it every day, even every week, whatever. Let's come together and let's do it. And then we're doing it together. It's not me alone anymore. Right. So,
yeah. Never try to do it alone. That's not a good action plan. We don't do well alone. We do a million times better when we do things with others. And that does mean, of course, that we open ourselves up to potential hurt, pain. But I mean, the gains far outweigh the costs.
Definitely. I agree with that a lot. It's really important to have community, accountability, self-awareness. And I think that both of you have definitely grown a lot in those areas.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for facilitating this conversation.
Thank you so much.
We really do appreciate you. Is there anything that you're doing that our listeners should know about? Anything that we can support you in?
There's lots of things, but
there's lots of things. I like that.
I like that.
There's really not something that I can specify right now. There's a lot of different routes that I'm going in at the moment, so I'm excited. Even being here on this podcast with you guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's definitely an experience to have and to grow in. So I'm grateful.
So where can we find you if we need to get in touch with you, or listeners need to?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Valeria with the .a. Cravioto, Cravioto.
Ooh, the accent came out. ¿Cómo está?
Yes, I love
Those are literally the two Spanish words that I know. I've been on Duolingo for a whole 798-day streak, and I know 6 words.
I'm trying to learn French.
Can somebody talk? Can somebody from Duolingo call me?
She speaks French. She speaks Spanish.
Somebody call me because I need. Okay. Yes, you speak French. I speak French. We can learn from each other. Let's do that because Duolingo is not working for me.
I've tried Duolingo, but it's just all about the commitment and the consistency. So
is it though?
We can hold each other accountable.
Is it 798-day streak?
It's not happening. Okay, never mind then.
Okay.
But yeah, so if you find me on Instagram, you can find content on spirituality, dance, self-development, and just a lot of adventures. So
love
it. Looking forward to it.
So thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate your ears and your eyes on everything we're doing right now. If you like what we're doing, please feel free to like, share, subscribe. We really do value your support as we continue to build. Our goal is to make these episodes even better, to bring in more and exciting new guests. So your support is valuable to us. And thank you so much for listening. Have a good time. We'll see you again soon.
Take care.